The Big E Sports Show.
Yeah, we got it going on,
The fastest hour in sports entertainment. We don't just talk about the headlines. We bring you some of the most engaging and colorful guests each and every episode for your listening pleasure. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Elissa Walker Campbell.
Hey, Elissa Walker Campbell. Welcome back to the Big E Sports Show as we get set to preview Super Bowl 60. And today we're joined by former NFL quarterback, Super Bowl champion, the great Trent Green. We're going to go inside the huddle, preview this year's matchup, and reflect also on his alma mater, Indiana's historic championship run, and also Trent's time in the NFL and the opportunity to play for Hall of Fame coach, the great Dick Vermeil. Good to have you on the program, Trent.
It's great to be on here, and that's lots of good stuff you're talking about there. It's been a whirlwind, broadcasting this season, and then my Hoosiers finding a way to win the national championship. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Trent, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but let's lead off and talk about, at the start of the 2025 season, did you envision that the Seahawks and the Patriots would be the last two teams standing?
Well, I don't think anybody did, and I think that's what's making this whole playoff run so interesting. Seattle really, when you look at what they did, and I was fortunate enough to call a couple of their games early in the season, and really had one of the best games of the season with the Seattle-Tampa Bay game. That ended up both teams in the 30s. We thought it was going to be a defensive battle. It ended up being a shootout. Both quarterbacks were on fire. So then we thought Seattle had something special, but for them to be able to put it all together is something else. And when you consider, Mike McDonald made the tough decision after 1 year to change offensive coordinators, decided to change quarterbacks, and brought in Sam Darnold. And that's a big risk. You're coming off of a winning season. They didn't have, didn't make the playoffs, but they came off of a winning season. And when you see, to take that kind of risk as a head coach and to understand what you want as a team, changing offensive coordinators, changing your play caller in terms of, who's going to be making that decision of what type of offense you want to run, and then going after Sam Darnold and seeing him come in and have the success they've had. I don't know how many people would have thought that they would do what they're doing, but it's been impressive to watch.
Well, you mentioned Sam Darnold. He has been a winding road for him to get to this stage. I mean, what have you seen in his just evolution that has allowed him to lead Seattle to the Super Bowl?
The thing that I love about Sam is that he continued to work. We had him early in his career when he was with the Jets, and it wasn't going well. It was just, but he always talked about the work that he was putting in the off season and how he was continually trying to improve his game and grow and mature as a player and as a quarterback. And the work paid off. He ended up going to Carolina. He ended up in Minnesota. He spent some time in San Francisco. He talks about all of those stops that he's made and how he's learned from each of those stops and each of those circumstances that he's been in. So I think that's the thing that impresses me the most about Sam. The talent has always been there. I mean, it was there in high school. That was why he was highly recruited. It was there in college, which is why he was drafted so high. It's just a matter for quarterbacks. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. You got to get the game to slow down, and you got to develop, and you got to learn. And for him, I think the fact that he didn't let some of his failures early in his career keep him from that path. And he just kept his head down and just kept working and believed in himself, had faith in what he was doing. And, he's finally come together. So I've been happy for him to see the work that he's put in and how it's paying off now.
It is countdown to kickoff as we look forward to Super Bowl 60. Our very special guest, Super Bowl champion, the great Trent Green, is with us. And when we dissect this matchup, I mean, where do quarterbacks win or lose a Super Bowl?
Wow. It always, since you said Coach Vermeil has been a part of this show for a number of years, and you've known him for a while, Coach Vermeil is always about turnovers, right? He shows the stats. Uh-huh. He has a notebook full of stats and numbers about turning the ball over. So I think that's where it first starts, especially when you're talking about the Super Bowl, is who's going to protect the football better, what team, especially when you look at these two defenses. Both these defenses are aggressive, like to get after it, like to cause turnovers. And so they're going to try and do that. Now, the Seahawks, have more turnovers during the season. Darnold's had more turnovers during the season, but they haven't had a turnover the last 3 games, the 2 playoff games, and then Week 18 against San Francisco. So they've done a good job protecting the football in recent weeks, and they're going to need to do that again. But I think number one, that's where it starts with the quarterbacks. You got to be accurate. You got to get. You got to be able to put you in the right play at the line of scrimmage based on what you see from the defense. But number one is you got to protect the football.
You know, you mentioned just a moment ago talking about your former coach in Dick Vermeil, but just how about these 2 young coaches leading their team to the Super Bowl?
You know, it's been impressive. I've known Mike for a long time, played against Mike Vrabel. I guess I should clear up which Mike I'm talking about since they're both Mike. Mike Vrabel, he and I played against each other in the league for a while, and then he finished his career in Kansas City, which is where I live. And we were actually assistant coaches on a youth football team. His son Tyler and my son Derek were on the same team, and so he was coaching D-line, and I was coaching quarterbacks and receivers.
Wow!
And so yeah, we've known each other for a while. It's I was happy for him that he got an opportunity. He wanted to get into coaching. Started off at Ohio State and kind of worked his way through Houston. And I thought he had. I was really surprised that Tennessee decided to move on from him because I thought he was doing some good things in Tennessee, but. Sometimes a change of scenery and a new opportunity, and that's really what he's done. So I've been impressed with what Vrabel's been able to do. Obviously, last night at NFL Honors, he was named AP's NFL Coach of the Year. Yes. So there's more people than just me that thought he had a great season. So that's a huge honor for him. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, I'm really impressed with Mike Macdonald in that the changes he was willing to make. I've talked to Mike Macdonald numerous times when he was defensive coordinator because that's part of my job from a broadcast standpoint is to talk to the coordinators. So I was impressed with him then, and to be able to see him come in and do what he's done in Seattle. And like I said, make the tough decision to change offensive coordinators after 1 year when it was really a record-setting type of season for Geno Smith and that pass offense and what they were willing to do from a receiver standpoint to change up the receivers and focus on Jackson Smith and Jigba and bring in Sam Darnold and just change the philosophy with Clint Kubiak. The run game has taken off and the pass game as well. So I give both of these head coaches a lot of credit for, number one, the culture that they've set in implementing the plan that they want and the way they've been able to execute and get their players to execute it.
Trent, you had the opportunity to play for Dick Vermeil, Hall of Fame coach who really is known for just building deep relationships with his players. And I would ask you, what separated him from other coaches that you had the opportunity to play for through the years?
Well, and that's number one. No, you hit it right on the head. It's his relationships. Every coach has their way of doing things, right? And there's no one specific way that is better than another because you can sit here and go through the record books about what coaches have had success doing things differently. Coach Vermeil and I hit it off right away, just from a relationship standpoint, understanding, those communications. At the stage of his career where I got with him, he wasn't a big X's and O's guy. Uh-huh. He was involved in everything. He was involved in the special teams meetings, offense and defensive meetings. He would pop in from time to time. But he and I would always talk about game management and understanding the game and understanding, okay, when's the time you need to be a little more risky? Which is the times you need to be a little bit more conservative? How do you approach players? How do you handle players in the huddle? How do you handle players on the sideline? How do you have those conversations? There's a certain time and place that you need to be vocal in front of everyone. And then there's a certain time and place where it's better to have those conversations behind closed doors, one-on-one with somebody. So when you're cultivating those relationships, and what I learned from him is there's a time and place, and understanding it and motivating and letting people know you care. And it was just something that I thought that I responded very well from.
Well, Trent, was there a conversation or just a moment with him that still sticks with you today? Because he was known for just his emotional investment and his belief in players. I just have to wonder how that impacted you personally.
I'm going to give you a couple stories, and hopefully this doesn't take too long. Oh. He was recruiting me to St. Louis when I was a free agent out of Washington with the Redskins and coming over to St. Louis. And I grew up in St. Louis, so there was a lot of things pulling me back to be a part of the Rams. And our dinner our first like big dinner of the night. My wife was with me, and he was late to the dinner. There were several coaches' wives. Carol was not with Coach because she was out of town, but he was late to this dinner, and everybody was concerned. Well, I'm going to make this story a lot shorter because I could get into great detail. But anyway, he got in a car accident on the way. He got to the restaurant late because of that. There's a lot of details I'm leaving out, but he got to the restaurant late because of that, and he didn't have a sport coat. And so it ended up that he had gotten hit on the side of the vehicle, and it flipped over onto its side, and he had crawled out the window and filled out the police report and did all this stuff. And he's telling us all this at the table. And then we finally get around, to talking the football and the Rams in the future and kind of what they thought and what the goal was. And then we get to the dessert part of dinner, and he rolls up his sleeves and he starts putting little pieces of glass in the cup holder, at the table. And I'm like, I look at my wife and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, he just flipped his car on the side, and he's sitting here picking glass out of his arm, talking to us about the Rams and how he wants to. I go, I've got to play for this guy. Yeah. This is unbelievable. I had met Coach before when he had broadcast some of my games in college when he was in between the Eagles and the Rams when he was broadcasting, and so I had met him then, but I didn't really know him. But that was my first impression, and I told my wife, I was like, we got to figure out a way. I got to play for this guy. This is great. So it was a memorable first big dinner.
Well, I would say Coach Vermeil earned a glass of Vermeil wine and an adult beverage after that, right?
Yes, he did. He definitely did.
Well, let's look back to that 99 season because you were brought in as the projected starter for the Rams before injury struck. So I have to wonder, what was your mindset watching the team evolve after the injury, and how did you stay connected and as an encourager so that they could cross the line and win that Super Bowl?
Well, 99, I'll start at the beginning then. So it was basically, they brought me in. I was the kind of the hometown boy they were bringing home, back to St. Louis. And, there was a lot of fanfare around it. Just because I had grown up there, went to high school there, and we had a lot of things going on. They were trying to revamp the offense. We traded for Marshall Faulk. We drafted Torrey Holt. We brought in Adam Timmerman. We brought in a couple pieces on the defense as well. So there were a lot of changes, and there were high expectations. We knew we were going to be good, and if anybody says, "Oh, we knew you were going to win the Super Bowl," then they're crazy. We knew we were going to be good. It was, you could just kind of feel it, and we got rolling in the preseason. Things were going great, and unfortunately, I got hurt. As far as being involved with the team, I think a big part of it had to do with the players and with Coach Vermeil. They would always continually check on me. They would continually come to the training room and see how I was doing. They would, on their way out to the buses to go to away games, the players would work their way through the training room and come and check on me. And, I had a really bad knee. So it was, I had my surgeries down in Alabama with Dr. Andrews. And so, I was trying to do everything I could to get back on the field. So, just being a resource, just being there. A lot of my time was spent with surgeries and rehab because I ultimately had 3 surgeries that first season, and then I had another one after the 2000 season, and then another one subsequent lately, or 2005. But just really the players and the coaches are the ones that kept me involved. Coach had made it clear right away. He's like, whenever you're up to going to meetings, whenever you're up to traveling with us, we'd love to have you go on the road with us. You're a part of this. And then, the players that really, that would come through the locker room or come through the training room, that would just kind of give me words of encouragement. A lot of them were guys that had been with the organization prior, just because they understood what had gone on. So Isaac Bruce, Todd Light, Keith Lyle, guys that had been in the organization and had seen some of the struggles. They saw what I had put into it. The offensive linemen were always great with me. Fred Miller, Orlando Pace, Mike Grudadoria, Tom Newton. They were always checking in on me and making sure I was doing okay. But a lot of it, I think, is because of, we talked about relationships and Coach Vermeil, and that was really one of the things that I tried doing. It was my first opportunity as a free agent coming into St. Louis to build those relationships and to have an off season where I was the starter, because it had taken me 6 years to become a starter in the league. So I finally had an opportunity in an off season to kind of cultivate those relationships the way I wanted to, and try and build something in St. Louis. So I think there was an appreciation there, and I've had guys and coaches tell me as much over the years. So that's what made the year special, is because of those relationships. I wish I had been on the field. I wish I could have been more directly involved, but obviously Kurt did a really good job. Won an MVP, won a Super Bowl, and he and I remain friends. He and I, have talked many times, encouraging each other and encouraging our kids and stuff as they've moved on as well. So the relationship part of it seems like we keep going back to relationships, and that's really what makes that my time in St. Louis as special as it is.
Well, Trent, I mean, you experienced both sides of that season, started early and then transitioning into a supporting role. I just have to wonder, for you personally, as you reflect on that, I mean, how big of a challenge was that emotionally for you? Because like you said, I mean, you're a fierce competitor. You wanted to be out on the field leading your team.
Well, it was incredibly difficult. And my wife likes to remind me that it was more difficult than I let on to other people. She when I had that injury in '99, she was 8 months pregnant with our second son, and so she's the one that really had to put up with a lot, because she had a 2-year-old that she's trying to chase around. She's got a newborn, and then she's got me, who I just had the surgery, and I was going back and forth to Alabama to do rehab and to do checkups, and I wasn't home a ton because I spent all my time in the training room, and when I was home, I couldn't really move. So I give her more credit than I give myself, but it was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It was, as I said, it took me 6 years to get to that point in my career to where I was finally the starter. And I felt like I had a team of my own. And, if you go back to when the injury happened, I don't really do a lot of screaming and yelling and cussing. You can just see me. I take my helmet off and I put my hands to my face, and I'm just kind of like rolling around on the field because I couldn't believe, because I knew my season was done. All the pain and everything that I felt in my knee on the hit, I knew it was done. So it was just one of those. I can't believe this is how this is going to end. And at that point, I was just sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to do anything and everything I can to get back, because it took me 6 years to get to this point. I'm not going to let this be the end of my story. And so that was really a motivating force for me every day in the training room, in the hospital, rehabbing, whatever it may be, was, okay, you gotta get back to where you were before the injury, and so that was a huge motivator for me.
Trent, we are winding down our time, up against the clock. We definitely, while we have you on the program, we want you to weigh in on Indiana's historic 16-0 run in this season and winning their first national championship, I should say. So, what stood out the most from just that magical season?
It's been a magic. I tell people, and I'll tell you this, it's been a magical 2 seasons. You go back to last year when Curt Cignetti came in and he brought in all of his guys from JMU, and he brought in a bunch of other transfers, but it was a bunch of guys that had a chip on their shoulder and wanted to get something done. They made the playoffs. They got beat by Notre Dame, and it was like, okay, is this going to be a one and done type of thing? And they just reloaded. They added more guys. Obviously, they brought in Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner, and some more pieces to place around the guys they still had in place. And just the run that they went on. With that big win against Illinois early in the year, Illinois, I believe, was number 9 at the time. I think it was week 4 or week 5. And gosh, I want to say they put up 60-some points on them. And I said, you know what? This team's got a chance. They've got a chance not only to make the playoffs again, but they got a chance to win the Big Ten. And I still at that point in time wasn't thinking national championship. But as it went on and as they won, and then you get the big come from behind win against Penn State. You get the earlier in the year, you had the come from behind win against Oregon on the road in Oregon, beating the team that never loses at home. So, you start hitting those different check marks, and you start saying, okay, there's something special going on. But it's been great to see what Curt Cignetti has built. I'm glad that he's not going to go anywhere, and he has no interest in going anywhere because it's been such an amazing run for the university and for the football program in particular.
It has been fascinating to watch. Trent Green has been our very special guest, Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler in 2003 and 2005, and we look forward to another conversation in 2026. You guys enjoy the game, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, Trent.
All right, I appreciate it. Take care.
You bet.